much for allowing me to speak, and Scott, thank you. I was going to make a comment about 43 years, but that's a long time. Did you start when you were 10? But then all those comments about conservatives, so. Listen, my speech is not intended to be partisan. Was never intended to be partisan because it is to be about all of you and your membership. But I do want to say this in response to some of the comments that were made earlier on. I can't speak to how things were done previously. I was just elected in 2015. But I can speak to how we're moving forward, and that we will not be turning the clock back in terms of conservative policies or government, that we must always make sure that we're focusing on those who protect us, who serve our country and our community, and that as long as I'm elected, I can pledge that that will be the case. To all of you, I want to say thank you on behalf of our honorable leader, Andrew Scheer. I want to thank each and every one of you for your sacrifices and for all that you do every day on behalf of firefighters across our country. As a strong, passionate voice of more than 23,000 firefighters, professional firefighters, the IAFF is helping educate policymakers on the issues that matter most to your members, such as the line of duty, death member benefit, such as ensuring our national building code considers those who run into burning structures to perform search and rescue missions, recognizing that the materials used in construction today mean that our structures, they burn hotter, they burn faster, and are more unpredictable. That firefighter and emergency personnel safety must be clearly defined, which it is not. Your organization has been tireless in educating policymakers regarding chemical flammability and in advocating towards smolder-resistant versus flame-retardant chemicals. As firefighters, you hold a special place in our imagination. While the rest of us, and oftentimes, fall short, you embody our country's most cherished virtues: courage, selflessness, and humility. As firefighters, you face the most harrowing situations imaginable. Your average day is what most of us would consider our worst nightmare. When others rush out of a burning building, while you run into it. As your hardwired instinct for self-preservation screams at you to stay away, you don't hesitate. You don't waver. You rush ahead and do everything you can to protect the lives and prevent further destruction. You risk your life to risk your life for your family is to be expected, but to do so for people you've never met and in all likelihood will never see again is something else altogether. The ability to look beyond oneself to the well-being of the greater community is perhaps the greatest strength there is. Unfortunately, it's often one that is overlooked and underrated. But thankfully, for our sake, it is the strength that defines each and every one of Canada's firefighters. This is my second time standing before you. The first was when we were just really beginning the work towards C211, which is where I'd like to pick up the conversation today. I'll be focusing most of my remarks on post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm humbled and honored to be with you and to stand before you this morning. You see, in my mind, heroes don't wear capes. They wear shoulder flashes that say firefighter, paramedic, EMT, police, ambulance. They put their uniform on each day knowing full well that they will experience human tragedy. They are the brave men and women who answer the world's call, no questions asked, unwavering and faithfully serving your family and mine. They fix our broken bones. They restart our hearts. They run towards gunfire or run into burning buildings. And they hold your hand, they hold our hand when we take our last breath. And they listen helplessly, sometimes at the end of a phone, as horrific events unfold, while they do their best to get whatever help is needed. They are altruistic individuals who want nothing more to go to work, so you can help others when they need it the most. You are moms, dads, brothers, sisters, and you are sons and daughters. Beyond the badge, you coach Little League, kids hockey, soccer, baseball, football. You teach scouts and cadets. You volunteer in our community because you know that a healthy community starts at home. And it takes all of us doing our part. Doing whatever is necessary to give each person an opportunity for a normal life. But who is there when these superhumans are heroes? Who's there when you need the help? When human tragedy you experience becomes too much? Who answers your call for help? When we dial 911, we know you will quickly and without hesitation respond. But when you are hurting, are you told to suck it up, shake it off, saddle up? Are you told let's ride? Are you called weak? Are you afraid to come forward for fear of being seen as weak? By show of hands, how many of you have lost a colleague, friend, or loved one to suicide? We cannot turn on the news, look at social media, or read the paper without reading of yet another suicide. My private member's bill, C-211, was born out of these stories we see and hear too often. The stories of another veteran, paramedic, firefighter, or police officer who just could not fight any longer. My bill, C-211, was born out of a conversation that took place even before I was nominated as the Conservative candidate with my local 1372, my colleague, Pete Urbano. They said to me that their membership would rather crawl across broken glass than to take out a membership and vote for a conservative, the next conservative MP. I promised them, as I had done the whole time, is that I can't speak to what was done before, but I can only tell you how I conduct myself, and that I will do whatever I can to make sure that your issues are brought forward. C-211 was born out of that discussion. C-211 calls for the development of a consistent terminology, diagnosis, and care with respect to the mental health injuries our first responders, veterans, and military face in their service to our country and to our community. There are inconsistencies from one end of our country to the other and all points in between with respect to diagnosis, care, and terminology. Are you a first responder? Are you a public safety officer? Are you emergency personnel? Is it post-traumatic stress disorder? Is it post-traumatic stress injury? Is it an OSI? We still have people falling through the cracks due to diagnosis, treatment, and even coverage inconsistencies from province to province. We heard earlier that an estimated 70,000 firefighters have suffered, struggled with, or we have lost because of post-traumatic stress disorder. We need to be better. And I'm proud to say that my bill, C-211, received royal assent June 21st of last year, becoming law and making Canada the first country in the world to adopt legislation to combat post-traumatic stress disorder. Issue for me, but I can also say that the action plan announced today was born out of C-211, was born out of the constant discussions that we had across all party lines, that we recognized that as leaders we must step forward, that we must do something. With the passage of C-211, we are working with Canadians from coast to coast to coast to ensure that the federal government moves expeditiously to develop the federal framework on PTSD and an action plan. We see that taking place today, making Canada the first country in the world to adopt this legislation. Bill C-211 isn't an end. It's only a start. There is so much we must do. We have a national conference on post-traumatic stress disorder starting tomorrow right here in Ottawa. We announced an action plan earlier today. But the real work truly begins so that a hero in the East receives the same care that a hero serving in central Canada or across our nation in western Canada receives. There is nothing that quite can prepare you for the sights, smells, and sounds that you encounter in your service. How do you prepare someone for experiencing human tragedy? How do you explain to a new recruit that over the course of his or her lifetime they will experience an average of 900 traumatic events? You all knew that in your service to your country and community that you may have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. That's what makes first responders and those who serve in our military special people. Despite the risk, you all willingly signed up to serve. C211 was developed to look at the overwhelming issue and epidemic that we have with respect to our first responders, our veterans and our military. We are losing our warriors at a staggering rate. Over the last 2 years since tabling my bill, I've heard thousands of stories from those who are fighting and those who have been left behind. The friends, families, and colleagues of the fallen have all written me. The stories are uplifting, like the message on social media from the police officer in British Columbia who said C211 has given him hope and that he is finally getting the help that he needs. Or the video that we're about to see.
I just want to start off by saying this video is going to be very aggressive and really questioning advice. This video is going to be improved. This video is called Too Good at Saying Goodbye, like the song by Sam Smith. And I'm not playing my life right now, so I'm going to do this real quick here. Alright, so you guys don't know me. I was first responding for about 4 years. I saw a lot of dead people. I saw dead kids. I've seen car crashes. I've seen fucked up bodies. I have images in my head that I cannot forget. Okay? I have things that I just cannot forget. And I was diagnosed with PTSD and depression from that. Later on, I moved to Fort McMurray, where I ended up pursuing my career as well, and I got more PTSD, and what happened is I started doing drugs, and I ended up leaving the store that I really cared about, and she was wonderful. She took care of me. I ended up cheating on her one night with another girl, and she got pregnant, and that other girl was 6.5 months pregnant with my daughter. When she killed herself. I found her. She killed herself. What I was saying is I'm going through a lot of depression, and this video is the last video I ever post. So if you're watching this, I know you may not understand, I know you probably get mad, but this video is because I finally realized my purpose in life, and that's to hopefully save somebody's life with this video. All the time, if you're watching this right now, I'm dead. I'm going to say that right now. I have jumped to my death from 5 stories, and I am dead. So please do not freak out or call the police or whatnot or take down this video. I want you to share this video as much as you can. I want to save somebody's life. Before it's too late, like me.
So the messages I've received have been uplifting, but they've also been heartbreaking. Brandon reached out to me in October or November through social media, and he said, hey, Mr. Doherty, thanks for the great work on C211. I'm a firefighter, and I'd love it if we could just have a coffee one day. I get thousands of messages. It's not an exaggeration. And sadly, that was one message that I missed. I received this from his fire chief. Brandon was a firefighter in northern BC. received it from Brandon, and I also received it from his fire chief, saying we lost another one. I get these messages every day. Every day. Over the course of the last 2 years, I've met some incredible mental health champions, one being Natalie Harris, a former advanced care paramedic in the county of Simcoe in Ontario. Natalie appeared before the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health when they were studying C211. She explained to the committee that she went to school to be a paramedic to realize her dreams. Yet as much as she loved her career, it had become tougher for her to deal with the daily experiences. Natalie told the committee it's not normal to have a person asking just to take their leg or arm off because they were in so much pain from being trapped in a car with multiple open fractures all over the body. She continued, it's not normal to witness a young woman 7 months pregnant, rubber belly with the only limb she could move as a stroke she had just left her disabled. She said it's not normal to experience and to see the look of true evil when you learn how innocent child or woman has been murdered. Yet this is what our warriors, you all, do every day in service to us. When you answer the call of duty, you do so knowing full well that you will face sights, sounds, and smells that are going to stay with you for a lifetime. How do we combat that? We need to develop a national framework that includes early recruit training, building off of successful programs such as Canadian Military's R2MR, Road to Mental Readiness, that can be adapted to first responders sectors, so that we can ensure our brave men and women are better prepared to meet the mental and physical demands of their chosen field. That just as we arm you with the tools of the trade, weapons to fight crime, or equipment to save lives, we've armed you with the tools needed to be mentally healthy. We need to ensure that our frontline soldiers, officers, firefighters, and paramedics, our military and our veterans have the resources to ensure that they get the help they need, where they need it, when they need it, and whenever they need it. Education and awareness is vital. We need to ensure that these resources expand to families of those who kiss them goodbye in the morning, or the start of a shift or deployment, not knowing whether they will return, that they too can remain healthy. Being healthy starts at home. As leaders within your organization, you need to build an environment that is conducive to acceptance and to provide the necessary tools to ensure everyone gets what they need when they need it. And as leaders in our nation, we must do what is necessary to ensure that you all have those tools and resources to properly do your job and look after your teams. Not enough to be physically healthy. You need to be mentally healthy. Recognizing the signs and symptoms of mental illness and injury and how to effectively respond to and support your colleagues must be paramount. We need to ask that question, are you okay? We need to be prepared to listen. Through the development of a national framework, it is my hope that the men and women who are silent sentinels know that they're not alone in this fight. A paramedic and firefighter with over 30 years of experience recently responded to a Facebook post on my page. A friend of mine, a firefighter in Strathcona, had committed suicide this fall. And so I made a video. I spoke about him in the house. And this post was a statement I did recently about my friend who committed suicide. The gentleman told me he was diagnosed with PTSD just over a year ago. He's a firefighter and now struggles daily with the weight of his diagnosis. He posed some questions that I believe would be relevant to the conversation that we're having here today. And before I finish, I want to share those thoughts with you. He asked me, why do we wait for people to die to be this vulnerable and authentic? How is this different than thoughts and prayers after a mass shooting? Where's the vulnerability, authenticity, foresight, and courageous leadership when making policies? He says in 18 months of being off, he's not had one visit from his leadership and his union. He asked me why my friend had to become a statistic to get people's attention. I didn't have the answers then, and I don't have the answers now. But I can say this. Scott's not the first person to question this. I've had a firefighter tell me that his uniform has become a badge of dishonor. I've had paramedics, police that all tell me the same. We all need to be better. We all need to do better. Because if we don't, if we fail, we will continue to lose families, friends, colleagues. We will be no better off. The headlines will continue. Another first responder suicide. Another statistic. Messages filled with heartfelt thoughts and prayers will follow. Colleagues will show up in full dress. An honor guard ceremony will take place. And we will have failed as lawmakers. We will have failed you all. First responders often find themselves in situations that nothing can prepare you for. To say that it's difficult to imagine would be an understatement. But we need to work closely within our organizations to facilitate a culture of transformation. We need to be better in developing a workplace culture where it is supported and encouraged to come forward with mental health concerns. It is shameful that I still encounter leadership that tell me that people should know what they're getting themselves into when they sign that employment form. I still have police officers, paramedics, and firefighters that come to me and tell me in confidence that they don't do a critical incident debrief after major incidents. Far too often they're told to suck it up, saddle up and ride, that they're seen as weak for coming forward, that they somehow are to blame for showcasing the dangers of the industry. No one is willingly going to come forward if they believe there's a chance that they will be ridiculed or passed up for a promotion. No one will come forward if there's a chance that they can lose standing in the workplace. The stigma of dealing with mental health issues, injury, not only PTSD, but any mental health issue is real, and unfortunately can lead to people to withdraw and suffer in silence. And this needs to change. I'm hopeful that now, after the passage of C-211, these issues such as these will be discussed and planned out as part of this national action plan, this national strategy that was announced today. 9 months, 10 months after my bill passed. People need to feel comfortable asking for help and coming forward, asking for support. It is much easier said than done because the stigma surrounding mental health issues. But if we're to create awareness and develop supportive work environments, this culture shift really needs to happen. These discussions really need to happen. That's why this event is so important, and events such as this. That's why the work that the IAFF is doing is so important. I'm not going to get into a partisan speech, but your lobbying, your political action is important. We are taking notice. We are hearing your message. We are acting on your message. Otherwise, a conservative member of Parliament, an opposition member of Parliament, wouldn't have been able to get a private member's bill passed. We are listening. It is why I will do whatever I can to attend and provide this message at this event and all the events that I talk to and speak of, whether it's in the House, whether it's across this country. I believe it will save lives. Our first responders, veterans, and military need to know that coming forward and asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but rather it is a sign of strength. And you need to know that those who have been elected to represent you are listening, that the message you are delivering to policymakers is being heard. First responders, firefighters, military personnel, correctional officers, and members of the RCMP are individuals who wake up every single day with the knowledge that when you go to work, you're putting your lives at risk to support and protect our country and our community. You embody all that is Canadian. You are our nation's heroes. When I see our flag, I think of you. I think of your sacrifice. I'm truly honored to have had this opportunity today, whether it's the issues I've already mentioned or those that will inevitably rise as the nature of your work continues to evolve. Politicians at all levels, federal, provincial, and municipal, need to work together and with the IAFF to find solutions. Your safety and well-being depends on it. On behalf of my colleagues in the Conservative Caucus, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the sacrifices you make each and every day. I want to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Doherty. My remarks this morning, I wouldn't retract, but I would amend them. And that is, on both sides of the border, we really are a union known as being, if you will, in the States, bipartisan, and here, multi-partisan. Our real measure of our political action, even though I think it's fair to say they're traditionally a party, maybe more associated with workers and unions, maybe another party, but it's each individual member that really needs to be held accountable and celebrated when they're standing with us. We come from a culture where I know you're more than familiar with it because I heard your heart speaking, and that is, you got our back, well, we'll have your back. So regardless of your conservative party, I can't tell you how profound your comments are, but more importantly, your work and your commitment has been. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.